Now, this week's coverage of the royal baby boy has brilliantly juxtaposed the traditional and the modern. The announcement was formally unveiled on an easel and a gilt frame outside Buckingham Palace as millions of people around the world took to social media to send good wishes and comment on the event. Well, since the Duchess of Cambridge was first admitted to St Mary's Hospital, there have been 3.5 million mentions on Facebook alone related to the royal baby. Now, this new royal baby is the first to own a hashtag. Then there's Pope Francis, the first head of the Catholic Church in the Twitter age. He's reaching out to young people through some innovative church apps with time off purgatory to followers of his tweets. So how are these centuries-old establishments, the British monarchy and the Vatican, foraying into the world of social media, and how successful are they? Well, with me now in the studio is Elizabeth Linder, Facebook's politics and government specialist for Europe, Middle East and Africa region. She advises Buckingham Palace and many royals around Europe on their Facebook and Instagram presence. And Peter Williams from Catholic Voices. And welcome to you both. Thanks very much indeed. I'm really looking forward to this discussion because on the one hand, I mean, for example, if you're a royal family, you want to preserve tradition and all that is ancient and historic. On the other hand, you want to engage. How do you strike the balance?
That's right. Well, I think because the medium, Facebook and Instagram, is so visual, that balance has actually become quite easy to strike and very much straightforward for the palace. I've seen brilliant work over the last few days of the British monarchy embracing both channels. When we think about royal institutions, when we think about the Vatican, when we think about these centuries-old institutions as you described them, they're filled with visual imagery. Old and glorious buildings in the centers of cities and towns, royal portraiture, art that's been commissioned through the ages, fashion. So really, when we think about all of these wonderful images,
sure.
So, transcends quite well.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, but when you go to, I mean, you know, I know you've been called in to advise on these sort of things. What is the balance that you are seeking to strike in terms of, you know, is it that they've got to be like young kids and tweet like young kids, or do they kind of keep the dignity of it but use the medium?
Absolutely not. When I'm working with royal households on behalf of Facebook to advise them, I really think the most important thing is to strike a tone that actually makes sense for the institution that you're representing. That being said, a personal tone works incredibly well on both Facebook and Instagram. And I've seen wonderful photos on Instagram with the royals actually having a bit of fun, carrying masks and this sort of thing.
Well, I think we can show some of those photos because yeah, look, here we are. So these are on Instagram, aren't they? That these are pictures that have been put up by Clarence House, I think. And now, how much is it when you? There we are. So we see Prince Charles there and Camilla kind of with a mask on at some ball. And these are obviously photos that you wouldn't normally see. Do you have to do something more than just what the press would normally get in the course of covering royal events? Do you have to see a bit more intimacy?
I think it's different. I think on Facebook it's so much more personal. And if we watched over the last 24 hours on the Facebook page, some of the updates on the page have actually been personal quotes from the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, for example, thanking the staff of the palace. And I think the wonderful hashtag, welcome to the world, encouraging anyone who's had a baby on the same day as the young prince, that's all such a perfect tone that hits right to the heart of the humanity behind Facebook, behind Instagram, and people's willingness and desire to connect and to share.
And Peter, let's come to you now. And how do you think the Vatican is dealing with this? I mean, it was quite interesting. This programme was out in Rome an awful lot during the kind of, you know, the handover. And it was very interesting talking to the Vatican staff about the role they saw for Facebook, for Twitter and the like.
Well, the Church is, of course, a missionary organisation. It's there to win people to Jesus Christ and to his message. And, of course, it makes perfect sense for any organisation like that to use social media, as with any form of media, to actually bring forward that message. And the Vatican's done that very, very well. Earlier on this year, when the new Pope was elected, they brought out the Pope app, so you can follow exactly what the Pope's doing. You can follow his, you can actually follow his Twitter via the app, but you can also follow his speeches, you can follow what he's doing. It's very much engaging with what the Holy Father himself is doing and making that accessible to the ordinary person. But in and of itself, Twitter is a great medium for this sort of thing. I mean, there are wonderful sentiments, wonderful messages that the Pope can bring out himself.
I mean, I just wanted, sorry to interrupt you, but we've got up there on the screen there, you know, the front page of the Pope's Twitter page, you know, 2.7 million followers.
Yeah.
It's quite a handy way to reach an awful lot of people.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we've done. We've always done this. I mean, when the printing press came out, the Church used the printing press. The internet saw the introduction of the Vatican website and all sorts of other things. But of course, the Church isn't merely the Vatican as an organisation. It's also ordinary Catholics themselves. And there's a plethora of apps, of websites, of different things arguing for the Catholic position, showing why it's reasonable, why it's life-giving, why it's joyful. And World Youth Day is a perfect example of this, where there is a World Youth Day app, but there are also plenty of websites and plenty of means by which people can express the joy that's there. So.
What about authenticity? Do we have to believe that it is at Pontifex, that it is the Holy Father giving the tweets and not just some press officer somewhere in the Holy See who's doing it? And likewise, you know, the same whether it's Buckingham Palace, St James's Palace, Clarence House, whoever.
Well, I suspect, obviously, it's not the Holy Father. I don't think he has time all day to be checking Twitter and to putting stuff on. But what they do is, I think they take the germ of his message. They take exactly what he has said from his sermons, from his homilies, from his speeches, from everything he's done, and they make that accessible to people. And I think that's a wonderful way of bringing forward the message of Jesus Christ.
It's also a balance as well. Michelle Obama just recently joined Instagram and does personal videos to her audiences. I think generally people don't expect...
But that's authenticity, and people love that.
People love that, and I think people don't expect that every update is going to come directly from a public figure. But I think if you can balance it with a few photos, with a few tailored messages now and again, that really is appreciated.
OK, both of you, thank you. I hope your status is now happy to have been on Global on your Facebook pages.
Of course.
Thank you very much indeed for being with us.